On a beautiful day like any other, a young man was strolling alone through the city streets when he suddenly felt a strange discomfort in his left eye. As the irritation grew unbearable, a beastly creature appeared before him out of nowhere. Reacting on instinct, Sam swiftly drew a dagger and plunged it straight into the beast's rear. A deafening shriek echoed through the street, drawing the attention of countless bystanders. To everyone's shock, the creature began to transform, revealing itself to be a woman. And Sam's blade was still stuck in her backside. The scene was as awkward as it was absurd. "Isn't that Tan Huyen?" someone gasped. "And she just got stabbed in the butt in broad daylight." "This guy's got some serious nerve," another muttered. "He really stabbed Tan Huyen's rear." People began whispering. "Does he even know who she is? That's a beast soul in human form." "Wow, soul." Hearing the crowd's buzz, Sam began to tremble. The woman before him wasn't just anyone. Tan Huyen was one of the most powerful and influential figures in the Armored Enforcement Division. Embarrassed and furious from the public humiliation, she stammered angrily, You, how dare you stab me there?" Her fury erupted. Before Tan Huyen even took action, Sam was already surrounded by a group of large, muscular men, her loyal admirers ready to punish anyone who dared disrespect their goddess. Kneeling under their pressure, Sam faced Tan Huyen's wrath head-on. She pointed a finger at him and coldly declared, "From this moment forward, anyone who associates with or helps Sam is my enemy." That one sentence sealed his fate. It was a total blacklist. Sam was plunged into panic. He hadn't even been in the Armored Enforcement Division for long, and yet he'd already destroyed his future. He wished it were just a nightmare, but Tan Huyen's words carried undeniable weight. Now shunned and on his own, Sam resorted to hunting low-level mutant beasts by himself. Lacking strength, he took out his frustrations on swarms of black armored bugs. Eating their flesh could grant minor gene enhancements, sometimes less than 10 points. But after devouring over 30, his gene points had stopped increasing. In this world, humanity's genes were measured across 4 attributes: common primal mutated and divine blood. Sam had reached 79 out of 100 in common genes. The others remained at 0. Without enough gene points, he couldn't trigger his first evolution or earn a rank. For an entire month, he kept hunting and eating low-level beasts, but still no progress. He once thought of facing stronger creatures, but when he encountered a copper fang beast, one of the weakest primal species, he still couldn't defeat it. He nearly lost his life. It took 2 weeks of rest to recover from the injuries. If he had a team, maybe it would have been easier. But after being blacklisted by Tan Huyen, no one would team up with him. At his lowest point, Sam saw a golden glow in the distance. It was another black armored bug, but it looked completely different from the others. His instincts screamed that this was no ordinary creature. He charged at it, dagger in hand, only to realize it was rushing toward him too. They met in a flash, and Sam stabbed it straight in the gut. A system notification appeared. "You have slain a divine blood black armored bug. Beast soul acquired divine blood." He was stunned. Beasts in this world were categorized into 4 grades: common primal mutated and divine blood. Divine blood beasts were the rarest of all, and Sam had just killed one. In the entire armored division, there were few who had ever possessed a divine beast soul. Maybe the heavens hadn't abandoned him after all. After eating its flesh, he gained 7 divine gene points. The beast soul he received was a suit of armor, exactly what he had always hoped for. He merged with it instantly. Golden armor enveloped his body, and power surged through him. The strength was overwhelming, far beyond anything a primal beast soul could offer. He marveled at the feeling. For the first time in a month, he felt reborn. To test his strength, he punched a nearby boulder. It shattered instantly. Laughing with joy, Sam whispered, "Finally." He returned to headquarters, still carrying some leftover meat from the divine blood bug. After drinking soup made from it, he hoped to gain a few more gene points. Besides the meat and soul, he also retrieved something else from the creature's body, a glowing gem-like object that didn't seem to belong to an insect. While he examined it, a 6-scaled beast in a nearby cage suddenly snatched the gem with its long tongue and swallowed it whole. At first it froze. Sam feared it had died. But moments later, the beast transformed. Its body grew massive, breaking free of its cage, and lunged at him. Sam pulled his dagger and stabbed it just in time. It wasn't a powerful beast, but the attack had shaken him. He was still alive barely. After the mutated beast collapsed, the system immediately issued a notification to Han Sam as usual. What stood out was that the six-scaled beast had originally been classified as a common-grade creature, yet after swallowing the mysterious crystal, it had evolved into a primal-grade one. That could only mean one thing: the crystal had the power to trigger evolution. It reminded him of the unusual divine blood black-armored bug he had killed earlier. With that in mind, Han Sam quickly sliced open the six-scaled beast and found the crystal still intact in its stomach. A bold idea took root in his mind. He didn't know for certain whether the crystal could evolve other creatures into divine blood grade, but if it could, then he had found a gold mine. He could use it to rise in power and wealth, perhaps even replace his entire physique. While Han Sam rejoiced over his prize trouble brood back home, his mother, Latolan, was in a heated argument with her so-called relatives. Ever since Han Sam's father passed away, his brothers had taken to bullying the widow. Latolan demanded their old house back, insisting it had belonged to Han Sam's grandparents, but the relatives wouldn't let her have it all to herself. "You've lived here for over 25 years, said Uncle Hanley arrogantly. "You've already gained a fortune. It's time to split the inheritance." "Exactly," echoed another relative. "This place is worth at least 3 million yuan. Give each of us 1 million and you can keep it. Otherwise, sell the house and divide the money." Tolan was caught in a difficult position. Her finances were strained after her husband's death, and she had no way of producing 2 million yuan. But if she sold the house, she and her children would be homeless. She pleaded for time to find a solution, but Hanlei wasn't having it. He ranted about how everyone had struggles, not just her family. "Your sons only go to public school. My son Han Hao attends a private academy. The tuition alone is driving me mad." He gave her a deadline: 1 month. Either she paid them each 1 million, or the house would be sold and the money split. Otherwise, they'd take her to court. After the family stormed out, La Tolan collapsed onto the floor, pale and trembling. At that moment, Han Sam returned home. Though those people were blood relatives, he couldn't bring himself to see them as family. Years ago, when they were deep in debt, it was his father who bailed them out. Now that he was gone, they came shamelessly to demand money. "Our father's company was targeted by the Tinvu Corporation," Han Sam said, grinding his teeth. "He stood up to them for us, and that's why he died so suddenly and mysteriously." La Tolan wept helplessly, blaming herself for not being able to protect even their home. Han Sam's heart broke at the sight of his mother. "Don't worry, Mom. I've already spoken to Uncle Truong. I'll find a way to handle this. Just focus on taking care of little Nagin. Leave everything else to me." "They're not getting this house," he vowed. To La Tolan, her son was just a boy, fresh out of high school. But after spending a month at the Armored Enforcement Division, he had changed. He stood taller, spoke firmer, more reliable than ever. Seeing his resolve, she wiped away her tears and placed her trust in him. Han Sam, for his part, wasn't about to let these ungrateful, backstabbing relatives bully his mother and sister. After bidding them farewell, he made his way to the teleportation station, heading back to the Armored Enforcement Base. At the station, conversations buzzed with gossip about the stars of the realm. The chairman of the Trio A Long Corporation had just completed his 3rd evolution and was now qualified to enter the 4th dimension, approaching the level of a demigod. Another prodigy, Lan Kak, had reached 100 mutated gene points and was advancing to the 2nd dimension. Such super-evolved beings once felt like legends to Han Sam. But now that he had the mysterious crystal, he believed he could join their ranks too. Though he had some divine blood gene points, reaching 100 in a short time was unrealistic. For now, he aimed to reach 100 points in both primal and mutated genes first. With that in mind, he headed for Lokfong Valley. His goal, to earn 2 million yuan, enough to silence his greedy relatives once and for all. As he neared the valley, regret gnawed at him. If I hadn't cooked that divine blood black-armored bug, I could have sold it for 100 to 200 million. But what was done was done. On that hunting trip, his first encounter was with a primal-grade creature, a windclaw mantis. Known for its incredible speed and razor-sharp scythe-like forelegs, its main weakness was at the waist. Han Sam saw no reason to let it go. He launched an attack. At first it was tough. The mantis was fierce and fast, but with the power of his divine blood beast armor, it couldn't pierce his defenses. Han Sam quickly gained the upper hand and brought it down. But no sooner had he slain it than the entire swarm of windclaw mantises emerged, surrounding him on all sides. They attacked in unison, throwing their full strength at him. Hansam didn't back down. With each strike, his confidence grew. He slaughtered them all, every last one. Meanwhile, at the entrance to Lakfong Valley, another mutant appeared. It was Tu-Tu-Q, a spoiled rich kid and one of Tan Huyan's lackeys. Despite his wealth, he was just another simping follower trying to impress Tan Huyan. Eager to earn her praise, he dove into the valley to hunt for beasts. But once inside, he realized something was off. There were no windclaw mantises in sight. At first, he assumed another team had already cleared the area. At first, Tu-Tu-Q thought a group must have already cleared out the windclaw mantises, but looking closely it didn't seem that way. Soon after, he spotted faint traces of blood, and as he ventured deeper, he saw puddles, splashes from an intense recent battle. Curious, he pushed further into the valley, and there he found a massive pile of windclaw mantis corpses. At the top stood Hansam, tall and proud like a lone conqueror. Tu-Tu-Q couldn't hide his shock. "Big bro, you took down all of these by yourself. Seriously." Hansam didn't respond directly. Instead, he asked, "You want some of them?" 1,000 Tat-Toan coins per mantis. No haggling. Tat-Toan coins were the standard currency in this world. Truth was, Hansam had overdone it. He'd wiped out the entire swarm. There was no way he could eat them all, so he might as well sell them. Lucky for him, he ran into a rich sucker. Tu-Tu-Q lit up with excitement. He pulled out a thick wad of bills and handed them to Hansam. "I'll take them all, and if there's extra, keep it as a deposit. If you get more rare beasts later, I'll pay even more." Hansam, though exhausted, knew he had hit the jackpot. This was no ordinary customer. This was a walking wallet. He asked for Tu-Tu-Q's name and room number for future business. "I'm Tu-Tu-Q room 1046 at the Armored Enforcement Base. And you..." Hansam wasn't foolish. In this place, he was a pariah. Nobody liked him thanks to the Tan Huyan incident. Revealing his identity could bring more trouble. Instead, as he walked away with the money, he smiled and said, "I only deal in gold coins." Tu-Tu-Q, however, misunderstood completely. He thought Kimte Gold Coin was Hansam's name. Thinking it disrespectful to call a master by name, he came up with a new nickname, Brother Tay. "Brother Tay," he shouted as Hansam walked away. "I'll wait for you. Don't forget me." After that bizarre exchange, Hansam headed to the Copper Fang Beast territory to resume hunting. Earlier, he'd wiped out a whole swarm. This time he planned to keep at least one alive and feed it the mysterious crystal. Copper Fang Beasts were primal-grade monsters. Hansam cut through them relentlessly until he finally got what he was looking for: a beast soul. These beasts were highly sought after because their souls took weapon form, exactly what Hansam lacked. Now he had both armor and a weapon. His strength soared. After a full day of hunting, he returned to the Armored Enforcement Base. Just as he reached the gate, a mounted cavalry unit rode past him. It was the personal squad of Shen Tianzi, the local lord, and one of Tan Huyan's most fervent suitors. Upon seeing Hansam, Shen Tianzi's face darkened. Without a word, he lashed his riding whip and struck Hansam viciously. Caught off guard, Hansam couldn't dodge in time and took the full brunt of the blow. "You bastard," Shen Tianzi growled. "Who dared sell a primal-grade beast to you?" Hansam clenched his fists in fury. He had done nothing wrong. Onlookers, however, understood immediately Shen Tianzi was clearly retaliating over the butt-stabbing incident with Tan Huyan. No one dared speak up. No one dared oppose Shen Tianzi in this domain. "If I find out who gave you that beast," Shen Tianzi bellowed, "you're both done for." Then he spurred his mount and rode off, his followers trailing behind. One of them, Latayan Duong, glared back at Hansam with murderous eyes. They had a destination to reach today. Otherwise, Shen Tianzi wouldn't have stopped at just a whip strike. Rubbing his sore shoulder, Hansam muttered curses under his breath. He had to use the crystal, and fast. If he didn't grow stronger soon, people like Shen Tianzi would keep treating him like garbage. "But I'll get my revenge," he vowed. "One day I'll crush them under my boots." 3 days later, in Hansam's room, the Copper Fang Beast he had been feeding the crystal began to change. Its body turned bronze like a statue. When it was fully transformed, it would become a mutated Copper Fang Beast. However, even though the beast's skin now shimmered with bronze light, it still fell short of a true mutation. Evolving from primal to mutated wasn't as easy as evolving from common to primal. So Hansam waited. But waiting felt like a waste of time. Instead, He set out to hunt more primal beasts to earn money and gain more gene points for himself. Suddenly, a commotion erupted outside. He pressed his ear to the wall, listening in. Quick, something's going down in Wind Valley. So many people are dead. What you didn't hear, the top 3 elites of the Armored Enforcement Base formed a hunting alliance to go after a divine blood creature. Let's go. Maybe we'll get some scraps. The moment he heard divine blood creature, Han Sam knew where he needed to be. He sprinted at full speed to Wind Valley. From the cliffs above, he saw Shen Tianzi and Tan Huyen leading a hunting party. Their target a fearsome divine blood beast of unmatched power. Suddenly, someone in the team shouted. Han Sam saw Shen Tianzi leap gracefully into the air, dodging the beast's attack. But in doing so, he sacrificed his mount. The creature was torn apart instantly. Clearly, not all divine blood beasts were created equal. This one was on a whole other level compared to the black armored bug Han Sam had killed earlier. Even surrounded by Shen Tianzi's entire army, the beast showed no signs of weakening. But it didn't want a prolonged battle either. The divine blood beast, realizing it was wounded, quickly bolted. It had no intention of drawing the fight out any longer. Shen Tianzi, having poured so much into this battle and lost his mount in the process, was furious. There was no way he would let it escape. He pulled out his ultimate weapon, a shimmering green bow. Tan Huyen recognized it instantly. It was a one-time use divine beast soul. So Shen Tianzi was all in. "Face the arrow of my wrath monster," he bellowed, pulling the string taut. He fired. The arrow flew with deadly precision and struck the beast cleanly, sending it crashing to the ground with barely a breath left in its body. It was undeniably cool. Shen Tianzi took the chance to show off for Tan Huyen, basking in her attention until Han Sam suddenly descended from the sky. With a decisive strike, Han Sam finished off the dying beast, claiming its soul. It was a massive twin-bladed axe, a weapon that radiated power even at a glance. Shen Tianzi's army froze in confusion. What had just happened? Only Tu recognized Han Sam thanks to his signature black armor. Shen Tianzi, however, wasted no time. He roared and charged his men, following suit. Han Sam bolted, but the axe was too heavy. Even with divine blood gene points in his system, lugging around that massive weapon made running nearly impossible. He couldn't keep this up. They were gaining on him. Every step became harder to take. He had only just begun to glimpse a brighter future, and now it felt like it was slipping away. Breathless and cornered, Han Sam clenched his fists. Is this really how it ends, he thought. No, I won't let it. Just then a familiar voice echoed in his mind. You want to give up, son? Are you really going to stop here, Tio Sam? It was the voice of his late father. He remembered vividly back when he was a child playing a virtual reality game. He had seen a player devoured by a monster and was too scared to continue. But his father had told him, danger always walks hand in hand with opportunity. You can't let fear hold you back. Those words came flooding back now. Evolution, his father once said, is the most dangerous pursuit for any living being. But only through struggle and sacrifice can you grow stronger. In that old game, they had been surrounded by monsters. His father told him that one day, real life would push him into the same desperate corner. And when that day came, he would have to choose cower or survive. You're a smart kid, T.U. Sam, his father had said. But you're too kind, too hesitant. You must push forward. Those memories reignited something in Han Sam. I can't give up. Not now, not with Mom and Nolene depending on me. A wild idea struck him. It was dangerous, potentially fatal, but if it worked, he'd no longer need to run. Shen Tianzi was right behind him, blade raised to cleave him in half. At that moment, Han Sam fused his two beast souls, the divine blood axe and the black armored bug. His body transformed half human, half beast. His upper body remained human, but from the waist down, he became a powerful black bull. The weight vanished, his speed exploded. He darted out of the blade's path in the blink of an eye, leaving Shen Tianzi stunned. Those watching gasped he had actually fused two beast souls. It was reckless. It could have killed him. Is he insane? Some muttered. What kind of maniac does that while fleeing? But Shen Tianzi wasn't letting go. He and his men gave chase. Up above, several other ability users watched the chaos unfold. They weren't fans of Shen Tianzi, and though they didn't know who Han Sam was, they admired his guts. Serves him right, one snorted. High and mighty Shen getting shown up like that. If Han Sam makes it through the 9 bends and 18 trails in the mountain, another added, there's no way Shen Tianzi will catch him. He had already wasted a divine beast soul arrow and hadn't even touched the target. This was a major loss. Ha! I could die laughing. That golden axe, if he sells it, he'll be rich. Yeah, but you think you can just buy a divine beast soul with money. Good luck with that. I don't know who he is, said one observer, but I heard someone call him Brother Kim Tae. Kim Tae sounds like money itself. While the crowd laughed at Shen Tianzi's failure, Han Sam slipped into the forest and found a hidden clearing to catch his breath. Different beast souls had different forms and limitations. The divine axe seemed to have a time restriction. For someone of Han Sam's strength, the fusion would last 7 to 8 minutes. Thankfully, he had chosen to run instead of fight. Otherwise, he'd be dead once the time ran out. Unfortunately, the axe was too big to store in a beast soul space like others. He guessed Shen Tianzi had stationed guards at the gate already, so returning with it was out of the question. He buried the weapon deep in the forest. Only then did he make his way back to the armored enforcement base under the cover of night. Just as he suspected, the front gate was swarming with Shen Tianzi's men. At the city gate, Shen Tianzi's guards were conducting full-body inspections. Every person who wanted to enter was thoroughly checked, but they found nothing on Han Sam. He passed through easily. Inside the armored enforcement base, the whole place was buzzing with gossip about how Shen Tianzi had been humiliated by a man named Brother Kim Tae. People couldn't stop laughing about how he was forced to use his one-time use divine blood arrow only to lose the beast soul right in front of everyone. Han Sam was grinning from ear to ear. That afternoon he'd taken a lash from Shen Tianzi's whip, but by nightfall he had paid it back tenfold. Later that evening, Tan Huyen summoned To Tio into her private room. It was because he had foolishly shouted Brother Kim Tae earlier, raising Shen Tianzi's suspicion that the two were connected. If Tan Huyen hadn't vouched for him, To Tio might have lost more than his dignity. Tell me now, who is this Kim Tae? She demanded. Sister Huyen, I swear I don't know him personally. I only met him once at Lak Fong Valley. He sold me a few Gale mantises? Tu Q stammered. I even let the brothers taste one. He had no reason to lie, especially since he was obviously smitten with Tan Huyen. She didn't press him further. Instead, she instructed him to contact Kim Tae and offer a high price for his divine beast soul. That same night, unable to sleep, Han Sam went out hunting again. Shen Tianzi had placed a bounty on Kim Tae so high, even Han Sam considered turning himself in. But of course, he wasn't stupid. Still, one issue weighed heavily on him. His regular gene points were at 91 or 100. Primitive gene points, 10. Divine blood gene points, 8. But mutated gene points still 0. That was a problem. He was stalking a beast deep beneath a lake. After a long wait, it finally poked its head above water, revealing a single eye only to quickly submerge again. It wasn't Han Sam that scared it. It was something else moving through the woods. He crouched low, listening. Moments later, a figure emerged from the forest. Clothes tattered, face pale. The man looked completely out of place. He spotted Han Sam right away and asked where they were. I'm from Vindu Enforcement Base, the man said. This is Armored Enforcement Base north of the Kak Lai. 2 mountains, Han Sam replied. I've never heard of Vindu. The man's expression darkened. This far into the divine realm, I've crossed into enemy territory. Then with a commanding tone he barked, Take me to your base. Han Sam didn't appreciate the attitude. He pointed him in the right direction but refused to escort him, saying he had a hunt to finish. As he turned away, the man sucker-punched him. Han Sam stumbled forward, slamming headfirst into a rock. Blood streamed down his face. What the hell is your problem? He yelled. No more talking. Just obey. The man loomed over him. Han Sam had had enough. He summoned his beast soul weapon ready to fight. He looked terrifying in his rage, but the stranger wasn't fazed. In fact, he seemed amused. 3-section spear from the public school curriculum trash, he sneered. Even without my beast soul, you're no match for me. Then with bare hands, he chopped Han Sam's spear in half. Han Sam was stunned. That was nuclear core martial arts, a technique that tapped into one's genetic potential, like a nuclear reaction. Need me to show you the difference in class? The man smirked. I'll give you one last chance. Lead me or die. Han Sam knew this guy was stronger, but he couldn't stand being called garbage by some lunatic from nowhere. So he summoned his armor and shouted, Who are you calling trash? Didn't your parents teach you how to treat people with respect? He charged. But the man was too fast. Han Sam's attacks missed, and he took a blow to the leg, not enough to break it, but his divine armor dented. That shocked him. This armor had withstood countless monsters without a scratch. Yet this man had dented it with a single kick. Even the stranger looked surprised. He hadn't expected the armor to survive his core bone strike. Now he knew it was divine blood armor. Having recently lost his own beast soul, the man saw Han Sam as a lifeline. "Give me that armor and I'll let you live," he threatened. But Han Sam wasn't stupid. This armor was a gift from the heavens. No way was he handing it over. He attacked again, this time a leaping kick from above. The man caught his leg midair and slammed him into the ground. "Trash is still trash," he scoffed. "Even with divine armor, you're nothing." He grabbed Han Sam by the collar and slammed his face into the dirt again and again. Han Sam was in agony, but his will to fight burned hot. He drove his elbow backward right into the man's chest. The blow landed. The man coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Today I'll cripple you," Han Sam roared. He activated the fusion with the divine blood axe once more. Before the man could react, Han Sam knocked him flat on his back. Now the tables had turned. Han Sam rained down punch after punch. With each blow, he asked, "Who's the trash now?" "Who?" The man was pummeled, relentlessly bloodied and barely conscious, begging for Han Sam to stop. But Han Sam didn't stop. Not until the effect of the blood axeman beast's soul wore off. By then the man's body was soaked in blood, a pitiful, mangled sight. As Han Sam calmed down, a wave of dread swept over him. His body trembled. It was the first time he had killed someone. Yet, if he hadn't, he would have been the one to die. That man's nuclear core technique had been terrifying. Once composed, Han Sam approached the body and began searching it. The corpse was beyond recognition, but Han Sam still managed to find something of value, a memory shard. Memory shards weren't cheap. Back at his room in steel armor shelter, he took it out and examined it. To his surprise, the shard contained a complete, fully visualized version of the Ice Jade Bone technique. Han Sam was overjoyed. This had been a lucky day. In the morning, he stole a beast soul from Thon Thien Tu. At night, he gained a high-level nuclear core technique from a mysterious stranger. Originally, he'd planned to buy one of these techniques after saving up, but this windfall saved him a great deal of money. So Han Sam began practicing the Ice Jade Bone technique right away. The more he trained, the more marvelous he found it to be. After about 3 days, he felt his body becoming colder, but also stronger. Even his skin became smoother. His body temperature dropped about 2 degrees below normal. It was a side effect of the technique, no doubt. Just then, his communicator buzzed. The call was from Zhang Danfeng. Han Sam long time no see. "Come out with us. Han Hao and Toot Tik are here too." Hearing the name Han Hao, Han Sam agreed right away. Han Hao was his cousin son of Han Loi. Although Than Thien Tu had a bounty on Kim Tae, no one knew Kim Tae was Han Sam. Going out for a bit should be fine. Not long after Zhang Danfeng picked him up. On the way, Han Hao wouldn't stop blabbing to Tuyet Tik about the epic battle between Than Thien Tu and Kim Tae, how awesome Kim Tae had been. Han Sam didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If Han Hao ever learned that his idol Tae Ka was actually his own cousin, he might freeze up in shock. Still, Han Sam wasn't thrilled that Han Hao had been sent to steel armor shelter. With the unresolved family issues, it would get complicated fast. Since their father's death, their relatives had scorned and humiliated his family. Han Sam no longer saw them as kin, and now one of them had shown up right in front of him, awkward to say the least. "Feng, where are we even going?" Han Sam asked, noticing Zhang Danfeng had been driving for a while. "We're almost there. Look ahead," Danfeng replied. They were headed to Tin Hui Martial Arena. Danfeng wanted to see a boxing match. Today's fight featured Dung Chun-Lu, last year's 5th-place ranked fighter in the Divine Shelter. His name had already been engraved on the Divine Monument. In recent years, the top name on Steel Armor Shelter's martial leaderboard had been Tan Huyen, but she'd never made it to the Divine Monument. While Zhang Danfeng chatted excitedly, Dung Chun-Lu brought out his beast soul, raging savage beast, a blood-type divine beast soul. Zhang Danfeng couldn't stop gawking. "If I had a beast soul like that, I'd die happy." In contrast, Han Hao remained unimpressed. "That's nothing. This raging savage beast isn't even half as good as Tae Ka's divine beast soul." Zhang Danfeng scoffed and shot Han Hao a look. "Tae Ka strong or not, he got that beast soul by stealing it. That's not heroic at all. How could someone like that compare to Dung Chun-Lu?" The person Zhang Danfeng disdained was sitting right beside him. Han Sam heard every word. It stung, but Danfeng wasn't wrong. In that situation, only a fool wouldn't have taken the beast soul, especially when the enemy was Than Thien Tu. Clearly, Han Sam couldn't reveal to Danfeng that he was Kim Tae. That would just invite unnecessary drama. Over the next 2 weeks, Hansum kept hunting and caring for the bronze-toothed beast. As he'd hoped, it evolved into a mutated bronze-toothed beast. Though tempted to eat it and gain mutation gene points, he needed money more. So he contacted To Tiu Q. That night, they met in Lak Fong Valley. To Tiu Q paid 2 million Nata Tuan coins for the beast's meat. During their deal, he also relayed a message from Tan Huyen. She wanted to buy the blood axeman beast soul and the golden double-bladed axe for a high price. Hansum wasn't surprised. He told To Tiu Q to pass on a message. If the price was right, he'd sell. After the transaction, Hansum resumed hunting. This time he targeted the poison star sand bug in the bottomless cave, a highly venomous creature. Thankfully, his black armor beetle suit made him immune. After wiping out the cave, Hansum stuffed a large sack full of bugs and started heading out. But just before reaching the entrance, someone called out to him. "Is that you, Teka?" The light ahead grew clearer, and to his shock, it was Tan Huyen. Assuming she was there to settle the score, Hansum ignored her and walked past. But then she called out again, asking him to take her with him. Only then did Hansum notice her injured ankle. More importantly, she didn't seem to recognize him as the guy who had spanked her earlier. Thanks to his full-body armor, there was no way she'd connect the dots. Seeing an opportunity, Hansum decided to play along and maybe gain something out of this too. He sat beside her, pretending to inspect her injury, and asked. Hansen sat down beside her, pretending to check her ankle, then asked, "It looks like you've been poisoned by the venom spikes. How did that even happen? You're supposed to be strong." "A venom spike sneaked up on me, just when the effect of my dragon incense was about to wear off," she said, pulling out a dagger. Hansen recognized the weapon immediately. It was formed from the god-blooded beast soul of a poison-heart butterfly. "Don't even think about taking advantage of me," she warned. "Your armor won't protect you from this." Hansen had only planned to tease her a little, but he was surprised at how easily she saw through his mischief and remained so guarded. "Don't get the wrong idea. I wasn't planning anything. Weren't you the one asking me to help you out of here?" He waved his hands, playing the innocent. But she still wouldn't lower her guard. She made a deal with him instead. "If you can get me out of the bottomless cave safely, I'll pay you handsomely." Though Hansen often traded with To Tiu Q for money, he had already earned enough 2 million Tatien to pay off his mother's debt. He didn't care much for cash anymore. "I do like money, but I don't need it right now. You said that Venom Spike is dead, right?" "I already killed it. It's right back there." "Why?" she asked. That's when she gave Hansen a good look from top to bottom and was surprised that his armor didn't have a single scratch even after fighting a venom spike. Hansen agreed to escort her out, but in exchange he wanted the mutated beast soul from the venom spike she had just killed. The two quickly reached an agreement, and Hansen carried her out of the cave on his back. On the way, she kept thinking about how thoroughly Hansen had wiped out all the venom spikes without missing a single one. Before she knew it, Hansen had brought her near the copper armor shelter. Neither of them wanted to be seen by others, so he dropped her off close to the gate. As promised, she handed over a mutated beast soul in gratitude. She also took the chance to bring up the twin-bladed golden axe and the god-blooded beast soul of the Bloodfang warfiend. She made it clear she wanted to buy them, offering 6 million Tatien. Hansen was satisfied and agreed immediately. After all, the axe was too heavy for him to use effectively. "All right then, get the money ready. I'll send the time and location through to 2Q, he said. After removing his armor, Hansen returned to Copper Armor Shelter with his earnings. As soon as he passed through the gate, he ran into Han Hao. But the younger cousin pretended not to recognize him in front of his friends. Only after they left did Han Hao pull Han Sen aside. Turned out he'd heard that Han Sen had offended both Tan Huyen and Shen Tianzi, two people you didn't want to mess with. So Han Hao didn't want anyone to know they were related. "My path has only just begun. I don't want it ruined by association," he said. "Fine, I'll keep my mouth shut." "We don't know each other in this shelter," Han Sen replied coldly, then walked off. Just a few days ago, Han Sen had still been unsure how to treat his cousin. But now that Han Hao looked down on him, just like his parents had, he had nothing left to consider. Han Sen returned to his room. Now that he had plenty of money, life was finally looking up. He really wanted to share this joy with his mother and little sister. So the next day he went home and took them out for a day of fun. He even splurged on jade ice cream for Han Yin, something they couldn't have dreamed of affording just a while ago. The shop was packed. Hansen wanted to take his family upstairs to enjoy some peace, but a staff member stopped them. The second floor was reserved for nobles and VIPs. Latolan and Han Nian didn't mind, but Han Sen was visibly annoyed. He vowed to himself that soon he would have access to everything, and he wouldn't let the so-called elite privileges stand in his way ever again. After spending the day with his family, Han Sen boarded the train back to Copper Armor Shelter. As always, the train was jam-packed, and as it braked suddenly, he accidentally slammed into a girl. Whether by accident or fate, his face landed straight into her chest. He got elbowed immediately. "Ow! Sorry, I didn't mean to," he cried, clutching his face in pain. As the space between them widened, he realized the woman he'd just bumped into was none other than Tan Huyen. And she too recognized him. He was the guy who had groped her butt before. This time, even jumping into the Yellow River wouldn't wash the sin away. "People don't change, do they?" she hissed. "I thought you were just stupid. Turns out you're disgusting too." Everyone around them started criticizing Han Sen, thinking he had used the train's sudden stop as an excuse to harass her. Han Sen wanted to explain that the train had just braked and he'd lost his balance, but there was no way Tan Huyen would believe someone with a history like his. The train arrived at the station. She wasn't going to let him off the hook. "You think I'll just let this go? Aren't you headed for Copper Armor Shelter?" "I'll be waiting for you there," she said, and stormed off. Han Sen peered out the window and saw two neat rows of people waiting to greet her. More importantly, they were calling her Commander Tan. It was like getting smacked across the face. If Tan Huyen was in charge of that transport station, she'd know exactly when he came and went. She'd be able to monitor his every move. Han Sen clutched his head in despair, cursing his rotten luck. He began thinking up ways to protect himself, because if she ever found out he was Kim Tae, he could kiss his peaceful days goodbye. When Han Sen returned to Copper Armor Shelter, the first thing he saw was La Tien Duong and his gang. Worse still, they wanted to take him on a hunting trip. At first, Han Sen wanted to say no. He hated dealing with trouble. La Tianyang insisted on dragging Han Sen along. The group headed together into the mountain range. It seemed like Shen Tianzu had spent a large sum to organize this grand hunt. After a few days, Han Sen began to feel suspicious. Even though they had set off days ago, they had only encountered a few primitive-level beasts. With such a small number of creatures, wasn't Shen Tianzu capable of handling them himself? Why drag so many people into this? The more he thought about it, the more convinced Han Sen was that Shen Tianzu had his own agenda. Sure enough, not long after, they reached a cliff with a massive chasm in front of them. La Tianyang ordered the mercenaries to lead the way, and Han Sen now tagged as the pervert was among them. Han Sen was very reluctant, heading straight into the heart of the mountain range. Just hearing about it was enough to know it was dangerous. He really had no idea what Shen Tianzu was planning. Still, Han Sen and the mercenaries had no choice but to lead the way. The pit ahead was deep and dark. They kept going without seeing an end. The torchbearer in front wanted to move slowly, sensing danger ahead. Unexpectedly, La Tianyang whipped them from behind. Yelling, "Why so slow? Walking like women, move faster. Don't want the reward anymore." Under La Tianyang's urging, the group sped up and eventually reached a large river. There was no bridge to cross, so La Tianyang threw some items into the water, which immediately turned into large inflatable rafts. Han Sen could tell they had prepared this beforehand. So what exactly was waiting on the other side? Strangely, Shen Tianzu and his group didn't board any rafts. While Han Sen was still lost in thought, the water suddenly rippled, and from the depths a giant creature burst forth, causing all the rafts to wobble violently. Standing smugly on the shore, Shen Tianzu exclaimed, "You finally showed up, Bloodscale Black Serpent!" The monster's appearance instantly killed several people. Han Sen realized right away that Shen Tianzu had sinister intentions. He was clearly using them as bait to lure the beast. Those whose rafts hadn't flipped tried to flee, but Shen Tianzu slashed the river's path with his sword, blocking their retreat. "You cowards thought you could take the money and run. Anyone who runs, I'll kill." The mercenaries were trapped. They tried to bargain. "If we make it through alive, you have to give us a cut of the profit." Han Sen could only curse them as idiots. Blinded by greed, they couldn't see they were just pawns. The people on shore, Shen Tianzu and his men, were enjoying the show. There would be no reward. They were simply being fed to the beast to wear it out, so the others could cross safely. Han Sen was disgusted by their ruthlessness. He had just started turning his life around. He wasn't going to die here. He paddled desperately, but he couldn't outrun the blood-scale black serpent. Soon, his raft was flipped. As he hit the water, Hansen quickly summoned his black beetle armor. He couldn't do it before it would have exposed him as Kim Tae. But now submerged, he was free to act. With armor on, Hansen swam like a fish. Others weren't so lucky. Out of the original 34 people, only 7 were left. Tianyang grinned in satisfaction. Tianzu the serpent looks full now. Crossing the river shouldn't be a problem anymore. They showed no shame for what they'd done. They simply began crossing. On the other side, Shen Tianzu found what he was after, 2 eggs of a divine blood creature. Just imagining his divine blood genes increasing had him grinning from ear to ear. They planned to grab the eggs and leave. But the serpent wasn't letting its children be taken so easily. It burst from the river again. Shen Tianzu charged forward with his sword, while La Tianyang and others supported from behind. They threw 2 unlucky mercenaries to the beast. As a distraction, then fled. Shen Tianzu thought it was over, until Hansen, now in his Kim Tae identity, blocked his path. Drunk on the joy of seizing divine treasure, Shen Tianzu was caught off guard and punched hard by Hansen. Stunned, he watched as Hansen snatched the 2 eggs and bolted. Once again, Shen Tianzu had been outsmarted, left shouting curses behind. Hansen, on the other hand, was overjoyed. He never expected to survive the serpent, let alone leave with such a prize. But just as he fled, another serpent blocked his path. It seemed the one before hadn't been alone. In front was a beast behind Shen Tianzu and his men closing in. Hansen was cornered again. An idea struck him. He crushed 1 egg and tossed it at Shen Tianzu. Catch one for each of us. Let's put our grudge aside and deal with the serpent first. Instinctively, Shen Tianzu caught the egg, but he had no intention of teaming up. He still wanted Hansen's head. Blinded by hatred, he didn't realize the egg had cracked until La Tianyang pointed it out. But it was too late. The serpent went berserk and lunged at him. Shen Tianzu had to use all his strength to fight it, giving Hansen the perfect chance to escape. Hansen returned to the steel armor shelter in high spirits. As Kim Tae, he had just stolen not 1, but 2 of the bloodline beast souls from Thorn the Divine Son. Just imagining how furious Thorn must be was enough to make him grin from ear to ear. After consuming 1 of the eggs, Hansen's bloodline gene points increased to 13. His power had risen significantly, but as soon as he stepped into the shelter, another problem awaited him. Tan Huyen. Well, well, you sure know how to hide, she said, arms crossed. Disappearing for half a month. Did you really think I'd just forget? Hansen had completely forgotten the promise she made, that once they returned to the shelter, she would settle the score. As soon as he saw her, his face paled. He expected her to drag him out in public and beat or berate him, but to his surprise, she showed a sense of honor. She took him to the combat room. One-on-one, she said, "If you win, I'll drop everything and never come after you again." But Hansen wasn't so thrilled. Her bloodline gene points were nearly maxed out, and she had been trained in the military for years. She had access to high-grade beast souls and real combat experience. Fighting her was basically asking for a beatdown. "We won't use beast souls," Tan Huyen offered. "If you can withstand 50 moves from me, I'll consider this matter closed." Now that sounded more reasonable. Hansen agreed. He refused to believe he couldn't handle 50 strikes from a girl. Tan Huyen stepped back and signaled him to make the first move. Without hesitation, Hansen dashed forward and threw a straight punch at her face. He didn't hold back. Tan Huyen staggered backward and cursed. "You bastard!" Seeing her glare, Hansen quickly apologized. He hadn't meant to actually hit her that hard. He just wanted to end it quickly and get out of there. She wasn't even ready. She wiped the blood from her nose and straightened up. But before she could even finish her next sentence, Hansen hit her with another punch. This time it was definitely not accidental. It was a rare opportunity, and he took full advantage of it. Tan Huyen's anger exploded. She charged at him and unleashed a relentless storm of punches and kicks. She was trained, no doubt, about that. And having just been sucker-punched twice didn't help her mood either. She fought with fury, and Hansen could do little but flail and beg for mercy. In the end, he took all 50 hits full force. She didn't hold back. When he finally staggered back to his room, his face was bruised and swollen. The fight was a harsh reminder he was still as weak as an ant compared to truly powerful fighters. If he wanted to survive in this world, he needed to train harder. Tan Huyen, on the other hand, felt a little better after getting her revenge. But those 2 punches from Han Sen bothered her. After showering, she reviewed the footage of the fight. His hand-to-hand technique was laughable, like an amateur. But those 2 punches, they were something else. They had been clean, precise, and completely without hesitation, like they'd come from a trained assassin. There was no hesitation in his strikes, just pure focused aggression. It was a side of Han Sen she hadn't seen before. He usually seemed foolish and harmless. Had he been hiding his true nature all along? Or was this just latent instinct? No, he was just a recently graduated student. There was no way he was a killer, right? So was it natural talent, or had he been trained? She couldn't figure it out. But to her, he was still a disgusting pervert who had harassed her, and she swore she would never forgive him. The next day, Han Sen woke up determined to get stronger. He went to the local training center where classes ranged from beginner to elite, and even included super gene techniques. There were courses in martial arts, weapons, soft techniques, and even the famed super core gene techniques. After some thought, Han Sen signed up for a course called Demonic Entanglement. The instructor eyed him up and down skeptically. "This isn't just some regular martial art. Is your body even ready for this?" Han Sen casually waved a credit card. "Relax, I'm paying 1 million. Charge it to this." In truth, ever since mastering Ice Jade Bone technique, his physical capabilities had improved a great deal. He was stronger, faster, and more agile. His father had once mentioned demonic entanglement as an excellent countermeasure against powerful women. That was why he picked this particular class, so he could one day handle Tan Huyen. But when he finally received the training manual, Han Sen realized he might have wasted his money. The techniques included grappling, pinning, and various tangled movements that were frankly lecherous. The whole style was borderline indecent. If he actually used these moves on Tan Huyen, she'd probably kill him on the spot. Still, 1 million was no small amount. Han Sen decided to master it anyway. "Tan Huyen," he muttered, "you better not mess with me again, or I swear I'll use these skills on you." He trained in demonic entanglement for a few days, and by the time he returned to his room, he felt more like a hentai uncle than a martial artist. He could only hope it would prove useful someday. Just as his spirits were sinking again, he noticed something that lifted his mood. The Tooth Beast had evolved again. It was now a mutant-level Tooth Beast. Han Sen beamed with joy. He would continue to raise it until it became a bloodline-level beast. And best of all, it seemed the Divine Sun's people had stopped searching for Kim Tae, probably due to a lack of leads. That gave Han Sen the freedom he desperately needed. Now that things were finally settling down, he turned his attention to the mutant beast soul he'd received from Tan Huyen. But to his surprise, it was much smaller than he expected. Most beast souls manifested as weapons or gear, but this one was a pet, a tiny black cat. Han Sen frowned. He wasn't even sure if the thing could fight. He decided to test it. Han Sen decided to put the 3-eyed mutant black cat to the test by letting it face off against a tri-horned scale beast. The little pet charged forward enthusiastically, but before it could even launch an attack, it was smacked backward by the tri-horned beast. The trial was a complete failure. Despite being a mutant pet beast, it had virtually no combat value. Its only talent seemed to be meowing and acting cute. Han Sen was convinced that Tan Xuan had definitely played him with this gift. But there was no time for complaints now. Today's hunt would have to rely on his own efforts once again. For the next few days, Han Sen continued to hunt on his own. Of course, that useless 3-eyed cat was still tagging along. Not only did it contribute nothing, it actually ate more than he did. Most beast souls didn't need food, and if injured, they could just retreat into their storage space to heal. But this cat was an exception in every way. Still, it served as a source of entertainment, so Han Sen kept it and named it Meow Lord. While sharing a freshly grilled exotic beast with Meow Lord, they suddenly heard a cry for help in the distance. It came from another gene warrior out on a hunt. The moment Han Sen saw what was chasing the man, he instinctively turned and bolted. The poor guy begged him desperately, "Brother, don't run. I can pay you. Name your price." It sounded tempting, but Han Sen wasn't stupid. The creature chasing him was a pack of berserk-led beasts. A single one could trample him flat, let alone a whole pack. He sprinted to a large cliff, grabbed onto a vine, and climbed up to safety. The man below shouted for help. Han Sen hesitated briefly, then reached down and helped pull him up just in time before the lead beasts arrived. Both men gasped for breath, temporarily safe, but unable to descend until the beasts left. Han Sen looked at the man and asked, "What in the world did you do to get a whole pack chasing after you like that?" The man lit a cigarette and offered one to Han Sen. It was an expensive brand. Han Sen could tell this guy wasn't ordinary. He took one and lit up. "My beast soul got destroyed. I thought I was a goner, so I tried hunting a weak lead beast to stay alive," the man explained. "Oh, right. What should I call you, brother?" Han Sen, he answered. Lumbak Fong, the man replied, then asked how far they were from Glory Jean's shelter. "If you mean Steel Armor Shelter, it's a few days' trek." "But I don't know where Glory Shelter is," Han Sen replied. Lumbak Fong looked surprised. It seemed he'd wandered into unfamiliar territory. "No worries. Once I get back, I'll make sure you're well compensated," he promised. "But until then, let's make the best of our time together." The two waited for the beasts to leave. Lumbak Fong smiled sheepishly and asked if Han Sen had any food or water. He was starving after his failed hunt. Han Sen took out a cup of water and a piece of jerky, 100,000 credits each. Lumbak Fong looked shocked at the price, but Han Sen didn't flinch. High demand, low supply. He shrugged. Lumbak Fong chuckled and asked to put it on a tab. He'd pay 4 times the amount later. With no better option, they camped out on the cliffside for several days, sharing food and shelter. But the beasts below showed no sign of leaving. Eventually, Han Sen grew more anxious than Lumbak Fong. His supplies were running low, and if they didn't leave soon, they'd starve. He came up with an idea to climb to the top of the cliff and scout the other side. Agile and strong Han Sen volunteered to go. "Be careful, Sin bro. Don't ditch me up here," Lumbak Fong called out. Han Sen climbed using his newly learned Devil's Shadow movement skill. Ironically, its first real use was to scale a wall instead of dodging attacks. At the summit, Han Sen spotted something unexpected, a giant egg. Its sheer size made his skin crawl. What kind of creature could lay such a massive thing? He pierced the shell and started drinking its contents. The egg turned out to be from a storm rock, a divine blood beast. Unfortunately, eating the egg alone didn't grant him any divine genes. He needed to eat the beast's meat to gain that benefit. Still, he was thrilled and finished it before the mother returned. Meanwhile, the lead beasts below finally dispersed. Lumbak Fong breathed a sigh of relief just as Han Sen descended. But something strange was happening. Han Sen's belly bulged suspiciously. "Bro Sen, are you pregnant or something?" Lumbak Fong joked. Han Sen was speechless. He explained what he'd found and gave Lumbak Fong a cup of the egg, too. The man was famished and didn't hesitate. "See, I told you I wasn't lying," he laughed after chugging it down. Though disappointed, it didn't boost his gene stats. Grabbing Han Sen's hand, he shook it vigorously, calling him a true friend. "You even shared a divine beast egg with me. I'll never forget this." Moved, he vowed once more to repay Han Sen generously when they got back. Whether it's money or anything else, name it. Han Sen, seeing how enthusiastic he was, finally reminded him, "Young Master Lum, my reputation at Steel Armor Shelter isn't exactly pristine. You might want to keep your distance." "Are you kidding me?" Lumbak Fong shot back. "You saved me, and you're honest. I'd be a bastard if I turned my back on you." Then he grinned. "If anyone messes with you, I'll show them what real payback looks like." Lin Beifeng looked like he was ready to throw himself at Han Sen. Sensing that, Han Sen quickly raised a hand to stop him. All right. We'll settle everything once we get back." One headed for the Armored Guardian Shelter, the other for Glory Shelter. Despite their different paths, Han Sen truly appreciated Lin Beifeng's straightforwardness. He was someone worth befriending. Stepping out of the transfer station, Han Sen was still basking in the joy of his successful hunt. The spoils this time weren't bad at all, but just as he was about to return to his room, he ran into none other than Qin Xuan. It seemed like she had been waiting there just for him. Han Sen decided to play dumb. "Ah, Station Chief Qin, what a coincidence." "Follow me," she ordered without wasting a breath. Having trained in the devil's body-binding art, Han Sen no longer feared her. With a carefree shrug, he went along. After all, he was a laid-back guy. As expected, she dragged him straight to the combat room. He still had no idea why she was so mad this time, but he figured it was time to put that $1 million body technique to good use. Without even announcing the start, Qin Xuan launched a vicious kick. Han Sen barely dodged and yelped in alarm. "Chief Qin, Aren't you supposed to say start before attacking? I learned that from you, she snapped. Don't you always attack people before they're ready? It was clear this time she was dead set on beating him into the ground. But her next kick was caught. Hansen grabbed her leg and with a swift motion, slammed her down. Chief Chin, does that count as my win? He asked smugly, clearly pleased with himself. This devil's bodybinding technique really did work well against women. Predictably, Qin Xuan exploded with rage, screaming, "You shameless bastard!" She summoned her beast soul, a flaming lion, and charged. Hansen turned and bolted. You're breaking the rules. We said no beast souls. No matter how much he shouted, Qin Xuan didn't stop. Her fury could level the entire shelter. In the end, Hansen lost, again. Sure, she'd broken the rules, but in terms of physique, hand-to-hand technique, and combat experience, he still fell short. He had thought he'd gotten stronger, but when faced with absolute strength, he was still too weak. Qin Shun wasn't in a great mood either. The fact that Han Sen had forced her to summon her beast soul proved he was much stronger than before. After that, she began dragging him to the combat room daily. Han Sen didn't understand why she was so insistent, but he didn't mind. Training with a beautiful woman wasn't the worst thing. He also needed the practice to hone his skills. Still, every session left him sore and bruised. Qin Xuan might have looked lovely, but her temper and training methods were anything but gentle. One day, after another grueling session, Han Sen ran into a familiar face outside the training room, Shui Ti. She had once gone on a hunting trip with him, Zhang Danfeng and Han Hao. Now that she was of age, it wasn't strange to see her at the shelter. They hadn't exchanged more than a few words when a sleek supercar pulled up. From it stepped a tall, intimidating young man. Didn't I tell you sis use teleportation only from inside your house? If you do it here, it attracts all sorts of unwanted attention. Realizing her brother thought Han Sen was harassing her, Shui Tai hurriedly clarified, "Fourth brother, don't misunderstand. This is Han Sen. We were childhood friends." Han Sen recognized the man and politely extended a hand. The other man ignored it completely. "Someone like you isn't worthy of being friends with my sister. Stay away from her or don't blame me for what happens." Han Sen's expression turned cold. Being treated like scum upon first meeting wasn't something he took lightly. "You talking about me?" Han Sen asked, voice calm but sharp. "Looks like you didn't get the message," the man sneered before charging forward. But Devil's body binding was made for close combat. Even Qin Xuan didn't dare fight him hand-to-hand anymore. Han Sen sidestepped the first strike, grabbed the guy by the collar, and slammed him to the ground. The arrogant brother let out a curse. Han Sen, feeling quite pleased, looked down and said, "That's just how men say hello, right? You're big and strong, I'm sure you're fine." He didn't stick around. Before leaving, he turned to Shueti and smiled. "Let's have a meal sometime, if there's a chance." It was a casual farewell, just a polite gesture. But her brother took it seriously. After such an enthusiastic greeting, he figured it would be rude not to respond. A few days later, he told Shueti to invite her friend home for dinner. Meanwhile, Han Sen had returned to his room at the shelter. With Qin Xuan dragging him off for training all the time, he hadn't had much opportunity to hunt. His income was drying up, so he started browsing the Extreme Night website for side jobs. It wasn't an official site, but it had forums for intel trading and basic necessities. It had quite a few followers. The first thing that caught Han Sen's eye was Lin Beifeng's name. Apparently, the guy used his real name for transactions. He was offering a high price to buy beast souls and the flesh of mutant creatures. But those things were rare, hard to come by, so Han Sen couldn't fulfill the request. Then he saw another job listing. They were looking for someone capable of handling 10 primitive beasts alone to protect a group of inexperienced newbies on a hunting trip. In simpler terms, bodyguard for a bunch of clueless rookies. It wasn't a hard job, just annoying. Han Sen wasn't a fan. But the pay was 10,000 credits a day. In half a month, he could make 150,000. He was, after all, a slave to money. Han Sen didn't hesitate and immediately applied for the job. After securing it, he resumed his search for a new weapon. His moonlight spear had been broken during that incident with the strange man, and he needed a suitable replacement. While browsing the forum, he stumbled across something unexpected, a hybrid metal composite bow called the Dark Warlord, paired with alloy arrows. Han Sen couldn't believe such high-grade equipment was still unsold. It had been listed for quite a while, yet no one had claimed it. This Dark Warlord bow was a top-tier weapon, an actual Soul of Doomsday model. The standard listing price in official stores was 6.68 million credits. It boasted a maximum effective range of 800 meters, and when paired with alloy arrows, it could penetrate even reinforced armor at 300 meters. Of course, the bow required a minimum Alliance strength rating of 7.0 to wield. Thanks to his training with the Ice Jade Bone technique, Han Sen had already raised his strength to 8.0. He had practiced archery diligently and was confident he could master the weapon. Still, money was tight. Han Sen messaged the seller offering just 1 million credits. He was about to give up hope when the seller unexpectedly agreed and even sent a transaction link. The next day, the bow arrived via express courier. Eagerly unboxing it, Han Sen tested the weapon immediately. As expected, the Dark Warlord bow didn't disappoint. Its power was extraordinary. One arrow could determine the outcome of a battle. With this in hand, he would no longer need to risk close combat when facing powerful enemies like the Divine Sun or a Divine Blood creature. In the following 3 days, Han Sen purchased 20 thunder-infused alloy arrows and 20 lightweight alloy arrows. Including the 6 that came with the bow, he now had a sufficient arsenal. He proceeded to the interview site for his new job, only to discover many others were already there. Han Sen had assumed the role was exclusive. Seeing the crowd, he regretted coming at all. Just as he was about to turn back, a few recognized him. "Hey, isn't that the bud-obsessed guy from Tanchuan? Looks like he brought a fancy bow, too. Don't tell me he's here to protect those rich boys on their little hunting trip. I think it's them who will have to protect him." Amid the laughter, Han Sen noticed Han Hao glaring at him from a distance, his expression cold. Unbothered, Han Sen kept his composure. The young master Nguyen smirked and called out, "So you're the famous butt freak, huh?" Han Sen replied calmly, "If you don't think I'm qualified, I can leave right now." But Nguyen waved his hand. "No, you stay. I want you to protect us." Ken, another young master, protested Nguyen, "That guy's a joke." Others chimed in agreement. "You sure it's a good idea to have him protect us? If danger hits, he'll be the first to run." Nguyen stood firm. "I've made my choice. You can go ahead and hire more if you want." Han Sen signed the contract. Just then, Zhang Danfeng brushed past him and muttered, "Lucky freak. Got chosen by a rich idiot." Han Sen responded smoothly, "Luck has always been on my side." Later, deep within the forest, wind rustled the trees as the group advanced cautiously. Suddenly, Zhang Danfeng pointed. "Look over there." A primal beast. Something darted through the shadows, and the group gave chase. "Quick, catch it! Protect the young master," someone shouted. Han Sen reached for an arrow and loosed it. The arrow embedded itself in a tree. "Hey! Where the hell were you aiming?" someone yelled. Han Sen ignored them, whispering to himself, "Even a single shot from this bow is incredible. I just need to adjust my strength." Zhang Danfeng sauntered over, sneering. "Still forgetting you can't shoot within 10 meters. You think you can protect Nguyans?" "I'm just training," Han Sen replied. Zhang scoffed. "In public, you really like embarrassing yourself?" Then Han Hao appeared and told Han Sen to stop claiming they knew each other. Soon the group arrived at a cavern facing a trio of primal, black-striped beasts. Han Sen stood atop a slope observing. Nguyen was thrilled. 3 black-striped primal beasts. Perfect. We'll handle this ourselves. You guards just watch. "Okay, but be careful," Han Sen warned. The boys launched their assault enthusiastically. From above, Han Sen nodded in approval. These kids had potential. They just lacked experience. After several days of hunting, their progress showed. They easily took down the beasts until one, seemingly dead, opened its eyes and lunged at Khan. The group panicked. Khan screamed Nguyen. Just then, an arrow zipped through the air Han Sen's. It pierced the beast's skull, killing it instantly. Everyone stared stunned as the creature collapsed at Khan's feet.